there's a kind of tired that sleep can't fix.
A tiredness that settles in the space between your thoughts, the space where worry has been living for far too long. You wake up already bracing for the day, as if life is a test you need to pass before you even begin. You try to control every part of your existence, not because you crave perfection, but because uncertainty feels dangerous. You track every shift in mood, every change in energy, every tiny moment that might suggest things aren't going the way you planned. People look at you and see someone organized, someone capable, someone who knows how to stay calm when others can't. They don't notice the pressure under your skin, that constant tightening in your chest each time something doesn't go according to script. You worry about how fast you're healing, how aligned you appear, whether you're growing at the pace life demands. You scan every interaction for approval. You treat every decision like a potential mistake. You aren't just living. You're managing, supervising, correcting, anticipating. It's like you're gripping the wheel of your own life with both hands, afraid that if you loosen your hold, everything will spin wildly out of control. The irony is that the tighter you grip, the more drained you feel. Not because you're weak, but because you're carrying roles you were never meant to shoulder alone. You think you're maintaining stability, when really you're just fighting chaos with more chaos inside your own mind. And that fight never turns off. Not when you rest, not when you're quiet, not even in moments that are supposed to feel peaceful. This exhaustion isn't loud, it's silent, invisible. The kind that leaves you feeling like you're always falling short, even when you're doing everything you can. It's the heaviness that comes from constantly trying to be strong. Not the strength that looks heroic in movies or gets applause. The quiet kind, the invisible kind. The kind where you wake up every morning and choose to keep moving, even when your chest feels like a locked door and your mind is carrying the weight of every fear you never speak about. It is exhausting to pretend you're fine, to smile while your heart is shivering, to answer "I'm good" when no part of you feels good. People see your calm surface and assume your ocean is still. They don't notice how hard you work to hide the waves because they don't hear the storms inside your silence. You keep holding it together because you feel responsible for others, because you don't want to worry anyone, because vulnerability has never felt safe. You learn to be your own hero. You learn to stand on broken legs with steady posture. You learn that falling apart has consequences, so you stay collected even when you are quietly breaking. Strength becomes your mask. A mask so convincing that no one thinks to ask if you're tired of being the strong one. If you're aching for a moment where you can melt into someone's arms and just exist without pretending. If you're desperate for one conversation where you don't have to lie about how difficult it is to keep going. This kind of strength doesn't feel like power. It feels like pressure. Pressure to keep surviving without ever collapsing. Pressure to heal while keeping a smile on your face. Pressure to carry everything without letting anyone know you're struggling. Yet this strength is real. It's raw. It's the kind forged by pain that never got a voice. You deserve someone who sees that strength and still tells you, you don't have to carry this alone. It's the silence that builds up from swallowing your truth every time you're afraid it might be too much for someone else. You become an expert at pretending you're unaffected, pretending nothing disappoints you, pretending you don't need reassurance, affection, or help. You don't complain, you don't raise your voice, you don't ask for anything. You convince yourself that being low maintenance is a blessing, even though part of you is starving for someone to notice your unmet needs. It becomes a habit to hide your hurt before anyone sees it, to rearrange your feelings before they show on your face, to choose silence over vulnerability because silence feels safer than being misunderstood. You apologize for existing too loudly, even when you weren't loud at all. You say it's fine so quickly that you forget to check whether it actually is. You tell yourself that your feelings are too complicated, too dramatic, too inconvenient. So you shrink them until they barely breathe. Meanwhile, your heart memorizes every moment you wish someone would stay a little longer. Ask one more question. Recognize the subtle tremor in your voice when you said you were okay. There is a loneliness that doesn't come from being alone. It comes from being surrounded by people who never really see what you're holding inside. They admire your composure without knowing the cost of it. They love the version of you that never asks for anything. And you worry that if you showed your real self, they might step back instead of forward. So, you bottle everything up. You carry your unsaid words like a second heartbeat. You convince yourself that nobody would understand anyway. You start to fear that opening up would only lead to disappointment, or worse, no reaction at all. You stay quiet because you think silence is strength. Yet the strongest thing you could ever do is allow your truth to be heard, even if your voice shakes. One day, someone will listen closely enough to hear the feelings you stopped trying to speak. Someone will stay long enough to prove that your heart was always worth the noise. There comes a moment where the weight becomes impossible to hide. You can't keep tightening the knots in your chest, hoping they'll hold forever. Your mind keeps running, rehearsing every possible disaster like it believes worry is the only way to stay safe. Every tiny responsibility feels enormous. Every task feels like a mountain you have to climb barefoot. You start forgetting things, simple things. You lose track of your own thoughts like they're trying to escape. You stare at messages you can't find the energy to answer, even though you care about the people who sent them. You wake up already exhausted, as if your dreams were just more work you had to get through. Your emotions begin to blur together. Instead of sadness or fear or frustration, you feel one heavy mix that sits in your chest like a storm that won't move on. You cry in the shower and wipe your face before stepping out, so no one thinks anything is wrong. You laugh at jokes, you show up, you function, but inside you're running on fumes that disappeared a long time ago. You tell yourself to push a little harder. You convince yourself you're being dramatic if you stop. You ignore the signs because slowing down feels like failure and needing a break feels like weakness. So you keep going. You keep pretending. You keep holding everything together until one tiny thing snaps the whole structure. A comment, a tone, a forgotten appointment, a moment of overwhelm so small that nobody else even notices. Yet suddenly you're on the edge of tears, wondering how you got this tired without anyone realizing you were breaking. Your body whispers before it screams. It asks for rest. It asks for softness. It asks for a pause you never allow yourself to take. It wants you to stop treating survival like a performance and start admitting that even strong people need comfort. Even the resilient need rescuing sometimes. This is the point where you realize you can't keep living like an emergency that never ends. You need space to breathe, space to feel, space to fall apart just enough to finally rebuild in a way that doesn't hurt. The breaking isn't a failure. It's the body declaring, I can't carry this alone anymore. Healing doesn't arrive like a dramatic sunrise. It begins quietly, almost unnoticed. A small moment when your shoulders drop a little because you finally remember you don't have to hold the world up anymore. A deep breath that actually feels like a deep breath. A tiny spark of peace that doesn't feel temporary for once. You start choosing gentleness with yourself, not because someone told you to, but because the exhaustion forced you to finally listen. You realize rest isn't something you earn by proving you've suffered enough. It's a right you'd been denying yourself for too long. You begin allowing the truth to show. You speak up, even if your voice trembles. You say, I need help, without swallowing the words halfway. You let people in slowly, not to save you, but to walk beside you while you save yourself. You stop apologizing for your feelings and start honoring them as signals, telling you where healing is needed. You give your heart permission to be messy, your thoughts permission to be confused, your soul permission to be human. Some days will still feel heavy, but the heaviness won't feel like a life sentence anymore. You'll learn that strength and softness are not opposites. They are companions, teaching you how to survive and how to live at the exact same time. You begin trusting that life can be good without you having to control every outcome. You notice how much beauty appears when you're not busy bracing for disaster. You laugh without rehearsing the moment. You enjoy things without waiting for them to fall apart. The world feels less like a battlefield and more like a place you're allowed to exist in. You look in the mirror and see a person, not a project, not a performance, a person learning to be their own safe place. You realize the exhaustion you carried was never because you were weak. It was because you cared too much, tried too hard, and never gave yourself a chance to rest. This time, you won't just survive. You will live, fully, softly, bravely. You'll feel joy without suspecting it. You'll choose peace without guilt. You'll stay present long enough to actually experience the good moments, instead of rushing to protect yourself from losing them. You'll discover that relief doesn't come from being perfect or always in control. It comes from allowing yourself to be real. Your life becomes lighter, not because everything got easier, but because you finally stopped carrying it alone. If this message found you at the right moment, stay a little longer with me. There's more healing to come, more stories that feel like home. Tap like so this reaches someone else who needs it tonight. And hit subscribe to keep walking with me on this journey, one gentle step at a time.